A kingdom under construction is at its most honest. Scaffolding exposes ambition. Fresh stone reveals debt. And when war looms overhead, every brick becomes a wager against extinction. Rimuru Tempest understood that better than most rulers alive. After spending several days in Dwargon, he moved next to the young kingdom of Farminus, a nation reborn from the ashes of Farmis. On paper, it was an ally. In reality, it was a liability wrapped in potential. The hook was simple. Farminus was building a future it could not afford, financed almost entirely by Tempest. The deeper truth was colder. Rimuru was not funding charity. He was investing in inevitability. When he arrived at the capital, he did not see a city. He saw motion. Construction crews clogged the streets. Stone frameworks rose beside older walls. Warehouses lined the outskirts near a newly completed rail station, deliberately placed beyond the city proper to accommodate the flow of goods between Blumund and Dwargon. Storage capacity meant throughput. Throughput meant tariffs. Tariffs meant leverage. Tempest had laid the rails. Tempest would collect the usage fees. Tempest held perpetual land rights along the routes. Even after labor, maintenance, and infrastructure costs were deducted, the projected annual revenue was significant. Goodwill was the excuse. Control was the result. Rimuru headed the magitrain initiative personally. Farminus handled urban development under Queen Mjurran's planning, though her recent childbirth had forced King Yohm into the spotlight. Yohm claimed ignorance. He called himself uneducated. But he studied urban planning obsessively while she recovered. Ministers began approaching him directly. Authority grows in the vacuum left by responsibility. Rimuru extended low-interest, collateral-free loans to stabilize the kingdom's expansion. Not zero interest. Never zero. Because a gift creates obligation. Obligation breeds restraint. Restraint poisons partnership. Lending without interest elevates the lender into a superior position. Charging a modest rate preserves dignity on both sides. Lending or borrowing money is a great way to torpedo a friendship if you're not careful. So contracts were drafted formally, state to state. Clean lines. No emotional entanglements. Yet beneath the economics, war shadowed every conversation. Rimuru did not arrive with parades, no grand procession, no ceremonial display of Demon Lord prestige. These were tense days. He teleported discreetly with Soe and Ranga, instructing Gadora to fetch a carriage to avoid drawing attention. Gadora came personally. The old man bowed deeply, overly careful, overly aware that Diablo's expectations hovered behind him like a guillotine. Rimuru half-joked about bullying, reminding him that both he and Diablo ultimately answered to Tempest's sovereign authority. Gadora laughed, but his laugh carried the weight of someone who had seen what happened when Diablo's standards were not met. In the carriage, they discussed Masayuki's coronation as Emperor of the Eastern Empire. It had gone smoothly. Of course it had. Testarossa had managed descent with surgical precision. Velgrynd had performed a demonstration no citizen could forget, triggering a volcanic eruption and then neutralizing it without damage. A display of overwhelming force followed immediately by benevolent control. Terror refined into reverence. Anyone who was there to see it wouldn't ever dream of defying her again. Opposition voices existed. They always do. But Testarossa and Mas were handling them efficiently, using intelligence Gadora provided. Dirt surfaced. Problems dissolved. Not through massacres, but through exposure and calculated pressure. Rimuru remarked that anyone brave enough to oppose that alignment of power might be worth recruiting. Inside Farminus' castle, King Yohm and Queen Mjurran received him alongside ministers and officials. Edmaris, the former king of Farmis, stood among them, thinner, shorn of beard, eyes clearer than before. Humility had carved him down to something almost respectable. Rimuru's visit was unofficial, but the subject was not. A coming threat, a war none could ignore. Farminus was fragile, financially dependent on Tempest, militarily underdeveloped, its Knight Corps still rebuilding, no funds for mercenaries, no seasoned generals beyond a handful of veterans. Rimuru did not ask for war support. He offered evacuation. A transport magic circle was installed, capacity roughly 50 individuals at a time, not enough to celebrate. Enough to preserve leadership or relocate key assets. The big question is who'll stay and who'll go. That decision he left to them. Because panic in crisis is born from uncertainty. If roles are predetermined, chaos reduces. If citizens know the protocol, fear becomes manageable. Yohm's response was pragmatic. If Tempest fell, nowhere would be safe. If Tempest survived, perhaps Farminus could rebuild even if destroyed. The ministers nodded grimly. The implicit belief was stark. If Rimuru could not defeat the enemy, they had no chance. Rimuru disliked defeatism. You're supposed to struggle until the very end. Yohm countered with something simpler. He had a newborn daughter. He intended to live long enough to hear her call him father. War philosophy dissolves in the face of a child. Comic relief erupted briefly in the form of Grusith's absurd declarations about marrying Mjurran someday and claiming Miam as his own. It was ridiculous. It was inappropriate. It was also necessary. Rimuru delivered a line half in jest, half in warning. Comic relief characters often wind up being the first to die. The laughter faded slightly. Formal discussions followed. If Farminus became a battleground, reinforcements from allied nations would arrive. The Night Corps' primary duty would not be glorious last stands, but civilian evacuation and peacekeeping. Farminus' strategic priority was low compared to larger powers. If it fell, it could be rebuilt, provided casualties were minimized. Yohm accepted this. Then came the reveal that altered Rimuru's perception of the kingdom entirely. They were digging beneath the city. A tunnel network was under construction, originally intended as a subway line connecting the outer rail station directly into the capital's core. Magical geological surveys had assessed soil stability. Sorcerers reinforced ceilings. The project, conceived by Mjurran and supported by Razen, combined technological ambition with arcane efficiency. Now, construction was paused. The tunnels would function as shelters, reinforced corridors, sleeping quarters, water supply lines conjured through magic, food storage areas, and most surprisingly, composting-style latrines designed to minimize odor through microbial decomposition. Rimuru inspected the facilities. They functioned. Magic really is a cheat sometimes. He recognized something important. This was not reckless optimism. It was measured preparation. Farminus was not begging Tempest to fight its battles. It was engineering survivability. The tunnel extended beneath the palace. Evacuation drills were conducted regularly. Defensive barriers were maintained. Legion magic training emphasized coordinated protection rather than individual heroics. The loop tightened. If Farminus could endure aerial assaults and shelter its civilians, Tempest would not need to divert excessive resources to rescue it. Investment protected itself. At the training grounds, Rimuru assessed the Night Corps. 500 B rank or higher, 3,000 C or below. In total mobilization, perhaps 40,000 able-bodied fighters. Against an angelic host, numbers meant little. Grusith, now Knight Captain, spoke without delusion. Anti-air magic existed, but sorcerer numbers were limited. Their mission: buy time, evacuate citizens, hold until reinforcements arrived. Cold decisions save lives. Grusith mentioned a recent surge in power. Rimuru identified its source immediately. Carolon's awakening had indirectly strengthened him through their bond. A reminder that evolution in this world was contagious through allegiance and loyalty. Razen's name surfaced repeatedly. The former royal magician had seized an otherworlder's body long ago, inheriting physical prowess alongside arcane mastery. He trained Grusith in martial techniques that defied conventional magical reliance. Punches and kicks, raw combat, discipline without theatrics. Even Razen, however, had been humiliated by Gadora in sparring. Power hierarchies are relative. Rimuru grew curious and accepted Yohm's offer to visit the secluded training field where Razen, Grigori, and Gadora resided. The cottage sat isolated in open plains. No banners, no ornamentation, just space. When they arrived, the four fighters bowed, not to Yohm, but to Rimuru. Sari and Grigori explained their reasoning bluntly. Razen had exposed their immaturity. Gadora had revealed the magnitude of Rimuru's power. They wished to serve Tempest, even in the lowest ranks. Rimuru did not reject the possibility. Strength seeking greater strength was an efficient recruitment filter. Then Grigori made a mistake. He expressed interest in testing himself against Tempest's forces. Ranga emerged from Rimuru's shadow instantly, delighted. "I would happily let you test your skills against me." Grigori's face drained of color. Past trauma resurfaced. Ranga carried him off regardless. Minutes later, he returned with the man limp in his jaws. "Too much, boy." Grigori had fainted. Nothing more. Rimuru and Ranga seamlessly reframed the event as courageous growth rather than terror-induced collapse. Pride preserved, hierarchy reinforced, no blood spilled, message delivered. As conversations resumed, Yohm spoke quietly about limits. He would train, yes, but he understood that raw muscle meant little in a world where beings like Rimuru existed. Razen pledged continued loyalty to Farminus and to Princess Miame's future protection.